I don't, I certainly said that I was in that political campaign, which is far different from where I am now.
Congress passes a law.
Well, that's what you're doing in the fact, that's what you're trying to do. But I yield my time to Mr. Massey of Kentucky.
The ATF finalized its unconstitutional rule pertaining to firearms with stabilizing braces.
Well, I've got here the actual original brace that this letter was responsive to.
ATF Director avoids definition. ATF Director Steve Dettelbach's call for an attack weapons ban without providing a clear definition has sparked controversy and raised questions about the implications of such a proposal. The director's statements, made during a speech at Harvard University's Institute of Politics, indicate support for President Joe Biden's push for stricter arm control measures, particularly focusing on a ban on so-called attack weapons and the implementation of universal background checks. Dettelbach's avoidance of defining what constitutes an attack weapon has drawn criticisms and skepticisms from various quarters. This lack of clarity raises concerns about the potential ambiguity and subjectivity in enforcing such a ban, as well as the broader implications for arm owners and the arms industry. During the forum, when asked about his legislative wish list, Dettelbach expressed support for universal background checks, a measure that has garnered both proponents and opponents in the ongoing debate over arm control. However, his endorsement of an attack weapons ban without offering a specific definition has fueled the accusations of evasiveness and reluctance to engage in a transparent discussion on the matter.
I certainly said that I was in that political campaign, which is far different from where I am now.
You can ask for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Dettelbach, what is the core mission of your agency?
The ATF finalized its unconstitutional rule pertaining to firearms with stabilizing braces.
And I think the president has given numerous different times he's talked about this provision.
Into criminal just for owning a piece of plastic is really where you should put so much emphasis?
Informed law-abiding gun owners possessing pistols with these braces attached.
Congress passes a law.
Well, that's what you're doing in the fact, that's what you're trying to do. But I yield my time to Mr. Massey of Kentucky.
The director's statement that it is the responsibility of the United States Congress to write a definition for attack weapons is met with skepticism. Critics argue that by not providing his own definition, Dettelbach leaves room for subjective interpretation, potentially leading to a situation where the ATF and law enforcement agencies may enforce the ban selectively or inconsistently. Dettelbach's appointment as the head of the ATF is also highlighted, with mention of him being Joe Biden's second choice after the nomination of David Chipman faced challenges. This context adds to the political dimension to the discussion, as critics may question whether Dettelbach's stance aligns more with the administration's agenda than with a principled and well-defined approach to addressing armed violence. The absence of a clear definition for attack weapons becomes a focal point of criticism, with the people suggesting that if Dettelbach truly supports a ban, he should have a clear understanding of which arms would fall under a prohibition. This speculates that if the definition were broadened to include arms possessed by federal agencies like the ATF, Dettelbach's support for the ban might waver. The broader implication of an attack weapons ban, both in terms of its impact on the Second Amendment and its potential effectiveness in reducing armed violence, are not explicitly addressed. However, the skepticism surrounding Dettelbach's reluctance to define the term adds to the ongoing debate over the balance between armed control measures and individual rights. In decision, the controversy surrounding ATF Director Steve Dettelbach's call for an attack weapons ban without a clear definition underscores the complexity and political sensitivity of the armed control debate. Dettelbach's reluctance to define the term raises concerns about transparency and the potential for subjective enforcement, prompting a closer examination of the motivations behind such proposals and their practical implications. Attack weapon ambiguity debate. ATF Director Steve Dettelbach's refusal to provide a clear definition for the term attack weapon is highlighted as evidence that the term lacks a concrete definition and is, in essence, a catchphrase without specific meaning. The assertion is that the term serves as a subjective label for arms that individuals or lawmakers wish to ban, rather than a standardized classification with consistent criteria. The complexity of the term is emphasized by referencing California's multiple revisions to its attack weapons ban since its initial adoption in 1989. state-level bans across the United States vary significantly, with some jurisdictions considering features and specific models, while others focus on individual features such as an adjustable stock or a flash suppressor. Dettelbach's avoidance of providing his own definition raises questions about how he would determine whether a particular firearm qualifies as an attack weapon. The speculation is that his approach would be broad and inclusive.
You were asked a question by a Democrat earlier about statistics on the defensive use of firearms.
As we have seen across the world time and time again, what comes before gun confiscation? Gun registration.
I don't want to repeat the answers I've given because I know you have limited time, but no, I don't believe that.
Priority for your agents?
And I don't believe.
I think what I said was that there should be an assault weapons ban.
Are you aware that CDC used to track that and that they've removed it from their website?
Stabilizer brace owners who do not wish to register their firearms, the ATF provides 4 alternatives,
reflecting a willingness to categorize a wide range of arms under this label. Dettelbach's comments at Harvard, where he expressed the view that an overemphasis on individual rights, particularly the Second Amendment rights to bear arms, hinders addressing armed violence as a public safety issue. Dettelbach is quoted as saying that those who prioritize individual rights over public safety are not reflective of American values, asserting that Americans care about their rights but also respect the rights of others. Dettelbach's position is creating a straw man argument, implying that he paints a picture of people who oppose arm control as self-centered people who care more about their rights than the safety of the public. Dettelbach fails to acknowledge that many individuals understand the nuanced relationship between arm control, individual rights, and public safety. It suggests that the promise of increased safety through more restrictive arm control measures comes at the expense of individual rights. The discussion brings attention to the broader debate on arm control, with a focus on the assertion that sacrificing individual rights for the promise of increased safety is flawed. The reference to high homicide rates in cities like Washington, D.C. and Chicago during periods of hand-arm bans serves as an example of the argument that stringent arm control does not necessarily correlate with improved public safety. ATF Director advocates. The recent announcement of ATF Director Stephen Dettelbach's decision to advocate for a ban on attack weapons has sparked intense debate and criticism, particularly for its potential impact on individual rights and the broader landscape of firearm ownership in the United States. This move, coupled with the expressed desire to halt private sales of firearms, raises concerns about the government's increasing control over citizens' ability to buy and sell lawfully owned properties. Dettelbach's endorsement of President Joe Biden's call to reinstate a ban on certain types of attack weapons has intensified the ongoing conversation about arm control. The lack of a clear definition for what constitutes an attack weapon adds an additional layer of complexity to the discussion, with critics highlighting the ambiguity surrounding a term that, as they argue, seems more like a catch-all phrase for firearms that authorities wish to restrict.
Pistol, it can become a short-barreled rifle, and then it's subject under the National Firearms Act. That's what you're saying.
Whether intentional or unintentional, of Biden administration officials and anti-gun advocates and even the president himself.
You're not exempting the same brace that you gave this letter to.
Dettelbach, as the director of ATF, do you agree with President Biden
that are not designed and intended to be shouldered would be classified and not covered?
One significant aspect of Dettelbach's stance is his assertion that there is an overemphasis on individual rights, including the Second Amendment. The director's statement, "People who have the view that their rights, their individual rights, are the only thing that should be taken into account. It is just not who we are as Americans," has drawn sharp criticisms. Critics argue that prioritizing individual rights is a fundamental aspect of American identity, and any attempt to diminish these rights raises concerns about government overreach. Dettelbach's call for respecting other people's rights is juxtaposed against the perceived contradiction of advocating for policies that could infringe on individuals' Second Amendment rights. The tension between respecting rights and potentially restricting them for the sake of public safety is at the core of the debate surrounding arm control. In decision, ATF Director Stephen Tettelbach's decision to support a ban on attack weapons and restrict private sales of arms has ignited a fierce debate over individual rights, government control, and the intricacies of arm control policies. The lack of a clear definition for attack weapons adds to the complexity, and critics argue that any move to restrict rights should be met with careful scrutiny and robust citizen engagement to ensure a balanced and constitutional approach to arm regulations.
Right, the Sixth Circuit, I think, ruled yesterday, a
did. Here's
panel
what-
of the Sixth Circuit, there's a prior en banc.
To try and determine, and it's hard work to determine what things are and are not covered, how you define those terms.
And Mr. Bosco, I think, before this committee said that people were using stabilizing braces in ways that he hadn't anticipated.
That you said that all assault weapons should be banned. Is that a fair statement?
Well, I've got here the actual original brace that this letter was responsive to.
And what I'm saying is, as
Just
ATF
answer this
director, I
question.
take what comes
As
out-
you interpret the statute, I assume you're familiar with the statute.
Public reaction. The announcement of the ATF Director's advocacy for an attack weapons ban has ignited widespread public reaction and heated discussions across various platforms. Supporters view the proposal as a crucial step towards curbing armed violence and enhancing public safety. They argue that restricting access to attack weapons aligns with the need to address mass layings and other forms of arm-related violence. Conversely, critics express deep concerns about potential infringements on Second Amendment rights, emphasizing the importance of individual freedoms and the right to bear arms. Many question the lack of clear definition for attack weapons and fear subjective enforcement. The public is divided on whether such measures effectively enhance safety or erode fundamental constitutional rights. Online forums, social media, and public discourse have become arenas for expressing diverse perspectives. Some call for a nuanced approach, emphasizing mental health initiatives and addressing root causes of violence. Others staunchly defend the right to bear arms without government interference. The public reaction underscores the complex and deeply rooted nature of the ongoing debate surrounding arm control in the United States. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.